Hello everyone, welcome back to our positional ranking series for the 2026 NFL Draft. Today we have the wide receivers, which is always a very fun group to go through. Tons of, big time players, fantasy impacts here as well. So this is a very fun group. It's a talented group as well. Maybe not as much talent as some years at the very tippy top, but this is a deep class and there's a lot of good talent. So we're just going to go ahead and dive into our top 10 here. We'll mention some honorable mentions as well. But starting at number 10, we have Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame. He's a redshirt senior, a transfer from Virginia. And man, this dude has some good size. 6'4", 205 pounds. In 2025, had 36 receptions, 630 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So not crazy production, but there are some things to like in his game. He doesn't create a ton of separation. His route running and, that ability is not the strongest. But man, where he really shines is contested catch situations. At 6'4", 205 pounds, he has great ability to high point the football, track it really well downfield. He has very strong hands at the catch point. He, just boxes out defenders consistently on the sidelines. He's not going to run past you. He's not going to create a ton of separation at the NFL level. That's a risky proposition for, guys coming into the NFL. A lot of times these are the type of wide receiver profiles that do tend to bust a little bit. But you have to be elite at contested catch situations for you to be able to thrive at the NFL level. And Fields does have really, really insanely good contested catch ability. Strong hands. He's difficult to bring down after the catch. I don't think he's the most athletic guy. I do think he can have a little bit more nuance in his release package, his route running. He doesn't have a incredibly developed route tree, but it's not bad at all. And his run blocking is tough as well. You'd expect him to be a little bit better at it for being 6'4", but he is a solid run blocker. Kind of fits that X. He kind of fits in as that X receiver. Most likely you'd want him to be your wide receiver 3, maybe 4, but he can really be good in the red zone in those contested catch situations. And we have a round 3 grade on him. Certainly a guy I think that can have a very interesting role at the NFL level. Next up at number 9, we have Germie Bernard out of Alabama. He's a senior, 6'1", 204 pounds. Has been pretty good for Alabama, been their most consistent receiver. 60 receptions, 802 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I do have a round 3 grade on Bernard as well, and there's some good things to like in his game. I'm not sure he has any specific elite trait outside of really, really reliable hands. He does not drop the football. He extends well outside of the frame of his body. I think he does that effectively. The rest of his game, he creates decent separation. He's all right at running routes. He's pretty good after the catch. I think that's maybe where he thrives the most outside of his really strong hands, but he has a decent route tree. He doesn't have the most ridiculous traits, though. I don't think he has the special athleticism. His release package, I do think he can get bodied by press a little more than you'd like to see. So that may mean he kind of has to play off the line of scrimmage as a Z or slot receiver. I really think, honestly, in the slot is where he would do his most damage. He's very intelligent, kind of being able to settle down into the soft spots and zones, find the open space, the open window for his quarterback to throw it to him. I just don't know that he has this elite route running or this elite athleticism or run after the catch ability that really makes him stand out. I see him as a really solid wide receiver 3, somebody that can play as the slot or Z receiver in an offense and be a decent, reliable option, but definitely don't think he has a super high ceiling in this class. I think there's other guys with much higher ceilings, but he does provide some nice reliability over the middle of the field and in the intermediate parts of the field as well. Next up at number 8, we have Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana, redshirt junior, 6 foot, 201 pounds. 13 games this year, 58 receptions, 804 yards, and 11 touchdowns. And kind of similarly a little bit to Germie Bernard, I don't think Omar Cooper has this pure standout trait. We talked about with Malachi Fields, it's his contested catch ball winning. Some other guys, it's their elite athleticism or their great route running. Omar Cooper just kind of does everything at a pretty good rate as well. I don't think he's this special, crazy good athlete. I think he is definitely NFL athletic, but I don't think he's going to be dominating guys with his special athleticism. His route running can be pretty decent. There are times where you'll see him manipulate a defender with a head fake and create some good separation with a subtle push off at the route break or something like that. But I think where he's probably the best is his ability after the catch. They use him kind of as their underneath, quick design touch type of guy in Indiana's offense. These bubble screens, they'll run a jet sweep or a reverse play to him every once in a while, get the ball in his hands. He can make guys miss in the open field. He's tough to bring down, has a pretty decent frame as well. I do think his hands are pretty reliable as well. He's good at extending, catching the ball away from his body. I think he does that effectively. I think there's some nuances that he can clean up in his game. He's not super great at high pointing the ball on contested catch situations. He's not, stacking guys downfield consistently, tracking the ball over his shoulder. I'd like to see him be a bit of a better run blocker as well and develop some more release packages as well. I think he can get bodied by press coming off the line of scrimmage. I think he's probably going to be best as a slot wide receiver, maybe a Z at the NFL level, but he's not this true field stretcher. So I really think he kind of wins in this design touch underneath, finding the soft spot in zones type of role. That's typically going to be your slot receiver over the middle of the field. I'd like to see him be a better run blocker for that, but I do think he has some really nice ability. His yak ability is definitely what stands out the most to me, but he's a well-rounded, really complete wide receiver that I think could easily be drafted round 3, sometime on day 2, and be a reliable weapon for an offense that needs a little bit of infusion of talent into their wide receiver room. Next, we have Chris Bell, the Louisville senior, 6'2", 220 pounds, 11 games this year, 72 receptions, 917 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Unfortunately did tear his ACL in the last game of the season. So that's why there is that red medical cross there. And that's definitely going to affect where he may go in the draft a little bit. I think ultimately, I don't really have a huge change in his grade based on that injury, but he really wins with explosiveness, his after the catch ability, his ability to be athletic and be more athletic than the guy in front of him. So I think that's why there's maybe a little bit more concern with Chris Bell as far as this injury goes. But Bell is one of those guys who's incredibly physically gifted. He has really, really good blend of size, speed, athleticism, agility, change of direction. Like, he is a very rare, special type of athlete, and that makes him really dangerous after the catch as well. You get the ball in his hands, he can plant his foot, make one guy miss, and then launch upfield and have a big time play getting yards after the catch. So I think that's where he's probably the best. He is reliable with his hands as well. Doesn't have too many drops. I think there's just some other things in his game, though, that I want to see more nuance in. His route running, his ability to kind of feel openings in the zone, be able to create separation a little bit more consistently with subtle push-offs, head fakes, ability to manipulate the defender, create some more space with his route running, have that more dramatic route break that creates the separation. I also think that can be seen in his release packages. Mix him up a little bit more. He's usually just bigger than the guy going up against him, but will that affect him more in the NFL? I think that's certainly a question mark. And as big and physical as he can be, I think he's still not great at high pointing the ball, being dominant in contested catch situations. I think he's also not a good run blocker at all. So that's something I want to see him improve. I think Bell is kind of this Xavier Legette-esque player where he's really dangerous after the catch. He's not quite as good at high pointing the ball, but he's probably better at just being an underneath weapon and really tapping into his athleticism and yak ability. Even before the injury, was a little bit lower on Chris Bell than I think some people. I have him as a round 3 grade. That's really not super affected by the injury. I just think he is a little bit more of a limited type of player that wins based on his athleticism. I think there's a lot of potential in his game, but he's just missing a lot of the nuance that I really look for at the wide receiver position, and that's what has Bell at number 7. I'd take a swing on him sometime later on day 2, but I think there's a good chance he ends up going higher than that based on kind of where he's seen around the league. But perhaps the injury will affect that and maybe drop him closer to where I have him graded here. Then at number 6, this is definitely going to be the surprise of the list, but number 6, I have Ted Hurst out of Georgia State. He's a senior, 6'3", 185 pounds, 12 games, has 71 receptions, 1,004 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He played 2 seasons at Valdosta State before transferring to Georgia Tech, was there the last 2 seasons, and I just really, really like his profile. He's a great group of 5 type of wide receiver. There's really a lot to like in this game. He has good traits. He looks big out there at 6'3". He could absolutely put on a little more mass, but he's kind of that more lean but big type of wide receiver. And he has pretty good athleticism. You'll see him run after the catch and be really effective in that regard. And then he's also really dangerous in contested catch situations. He uses his size effectively, high points the ball, is dangerous in the red zone. And he also has good speed to run past people, be a true downfield threat. So I see him as kind of the Z type of wide receiver, even though he has maybe a little bit more of a frame of an X. I think his release package isn't probably developed enough to play on the line of scrimmage all of the time. But I think if he can put on some more weights and a little more strength training that, Georgia State might not have been getting the most out of his, frame and athletic build, I think there's still room for that to grow. But there's a lot to like in Hurst's game. He actually does run pretty good routes. He creates decent separation at the route break, and he also runs a pretty diverse route tree. You'll see him kind of run everything, deep down the field, all 3 levels. He'll attack underneath, over the middle of the field. He's a decent run blocker. He does need to clean up some of the drops he has on tape. They're a little bit too prevalent, but this guy has a really nice blend of athleticism, contested catch ability after the catch to use that athleticism, and then enough nuance to be a really interesting guy. Sometime on day 2, I even like him in round 2. I am really high on Ted Hurst. You probably won't see somebody higher on him than me right now, but this guy is really fun to watch. Turn on his highlights, turn on his tape. This guy can absolutely play. And, if you sit down and watch him, I think more people are going to be much higher on Ted Hurst than kind of the current consensus right now. He's a really fun player. Then we get into the top 5 here. I think this is going to be kind of a big 5 group of wide receivers who are really highly thought of, all guys that could potentially go in the first round and are kind of all different in specific ways, so they may go in a different order than I have here and may end up being better if they're picked later, depending on their situation. But I really like all 5 of these top guys, and starting with Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M, junior, 5'11", 190 pounds. He's the guy of the group who's kind of a little bit more undersized. In 12 games, 57 receptions, 866 yards, and 9 touchdowns. The traits, he's a little bit undersized. That's the biggest part of his game that is kind of a question mark. But I think overall, though, his athleticism, his agility, and change of direction, you really don't have any major concerns about his traits. He's just not this dominant X type of build wide receiver. I really like his route running. At NC State, where he was before this year, before transferring to Texas A&M, they kind of used him as a running back at times, and he was just this guy who they would get all these design touches to and really didn't use him to his fullest potential as a true route runner and true wide receiver. But I think he really showed big-time growth and big-time ability in that area at Texas A&M this year, and he did have really good route breaks, created a lot of separation, manipulating defenders with head fakes and then being able to burst and turn to the other side and use that athleticism where he is really effective. His release package is pretty good. He doesn't, face a lot of press because he's usually in the slots. Sometimes he is playing that Z receiver as well off the line of scrimmage, but he's not going to face a ton of press. I think that's best for him. But he does have a decent release package when he does go to it. Really where he is special is as a yak weapon. That's kind of a constant theme for a lot of these guys. He's a special athlete. When you put him on punt returns, he's incredibly dangerous. Had 2 punt return touchdowns this year. He's a big-time weapon in that regard. He's not this big contested catch dominant ball winner type. He's not going to be the most effective blocker due to his smaller frame, even though he has decent effort there. He doesn't high point the ball super effectively. He does win at all 3 levels of the field, stretches vertically. I'd like to see him attack the ball a little bit more when he's downfield, but is good at tracking it, brings it in relatively often. He does have a couple occasional drops on film, but runs a good route tree, creates good separation. Overall, you get the ball in this guy's hands, you let him go to work, and he often is open. I think Marcel Reed kind of left a lot on the bone here for Texas A&M's passing offense, and there were definitely times Concepcion was open and was not getting the rock when he should have. I have a round 1 to 2 grade on him, 84.86. I think you could take him back end of round 1 or early day 2 and be very happy with a dynamic playmaker that could really help open up your offense. Next up, we have Denzel Boston at number 4, redshirt junior, 6'4", 209 pounds. He's kind of the complete opposite of Concepcion. He's big, he's physical, he's dominant in the red zone. 62 receptions this year in 12 games, 881 yards, and 11 touchdowns. There's good traits in his profile. He's big, he's physical, he's athletic. He has good speed and athleticism, change of direction as well. It's not as good as somebody like Concepcion, who's lower to the ground, doesn't have as much mass to turn and move. But Boston, for his size, is actually pretty fluid, which I think is a big time deal. He has decent route running. His hands are incredibly reliable. He's dominant in contested catch situations, in the red zone, downfield, over the middle, in tough scenarios. He's really good at that. He's pretty good as a yak weapon as well. He uses his size, can make guys miss. He'll lower his shoulder and plow through guys as well. He'll run pretty much every route in the book. You ask him to run over the middle of the field, win to all 3 levels. I think he does that effectively, and he's also one of the best run blockers in this draft class as well, which certainly doesn't hurt him. I don't think he's this true burner type. He's not this guy who is constantly creating the most separation he possibly could because, he's just not quite as quick to snap on the route and get into the route break, but he is good at using subtle push-offs to create a little bit more space, creates really good, strong hands at the catch point, which is really helpful for him. I do want to see him be a little bit more dynamic as far as varying his release packages. I think he's physical enough to get off press, but I want to see him be able to vary his release packages, go to a diamond release, go to, some of the other ways that you can get off the line of scrimmage. I think that that's one area that he can continue to get better at, and I'm not sure that I see Boston as this true, number 1 dominant wide receiver, but I think you could absolutely have him as the best wide receiver on your team. Take him sometime in round 1, and he could be a really reliable type of weapon for you. I don't see him as a potentially top 10 wide receiver at the NFL level, but I do think he can be a top 20 wide receiver, be your wide receiver 1, be a dominant X type of ball winner type, and be solid in the rest of the areas that make him a really well-rounded, complete wide receiver. Then at number 3, these top 3 guys are even more close. These top 3 guys finish within 1 point of each other in my grading system, less than a point, in fact. So you really could switch them at any order, and I would pretty much agree with you because I think the fit of these guys is just basically what this is going to come down to. But at number 3, I have Carnell Tate out of Ohio State, junior, 6'3", 195 pounds, 48 catches this year, 838 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And Carnell Tate is just really fun to watch. Next to Jeremiah Smith in this Ohio State offense, he has turned into a true downfield threat that, he has good athleticism. He is really fluid moving downfield. He has fantastic contested catch ability, and this has turned him into probably the best deep threat in college football because of that. He also does face a good amount of single coverage because of the guy lining up on the other side of him, but he has incredibly reliable hands, really nuanced, advanced route running where he'll sink his hips, he'll create separation at the route break. He's really good release packages as well. He'll get off the line of scrimmage. I think he's probably best as a Z receiver because he does have a bit of a thinner frame. You want to use him downfield. You want to get him, in space where he can really use his ball tracking, his speed, his athleticism. I think he has a very developed and advanced route tree. He'll run pretty much everything in the book, over the middle of the field, on the outside, comebacks, deep balls, digs, corner routes. Like, he runs pretty much all of it, has incredible hands. Really, the only knock I have on Carnell Tate is I think he's a little bit thin, and I don't think that makes him the best run blocker. He competes really hard, but I do think there's times where I want to see him just be a little bit more physical. And then also after the catch, I just don't think he's this dominant, guy after the catch. He'll lower his shoulder, pick up the extra 2 yards, but I don't think he is constantly breaking tackles, running away from guys. I think that's maybe an area where he can get a little bit better, but he's a very complete, very solid wide receiver, great downfield threat, and he's absolutely the type of guy that you can take in the top 15, top 10 picks and have him be the focal point of your passing offense. Next up at number 2, a guy who I had my doubts on, but Makai Lemon out of USC, junior, 5'11", 195 pounds, 79 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And the size is the biggest thing with Lemon. It's just something he's always going to be overlooked for. It's the reason I was just a little unsure if this guy, who's probably going to be a slot-only wide receiver, is going to be worth a top 10 selection. He plays inside out at USC, but at the NFL level, he's probably, because of that size, going to be mostly a slot-only type of wide receiver, or Z at the most. He just doesn't have the release ability or the size or physicality to fight off press super reliably. But he's really agile, and this dude does a lot of things, a lot of the things that we talked about, the nuances of being a wide receiver that a lot of other guys don't have. They're way more physically gifted than Makai Lemon. This guy just does all of those little things so well. Great release package. He's so good at creating separation at the route break. He just has these really fluid hips where he can make a quick turn, be really good at creating that separation. His quarterback's best friend by being able to do that. His incredibly reliable hands, doesn't drop the ball very often, and he is just tough as hell over the middle of the field. Run blocking, he's just a fantastic competitor there. He isn't the biggest guy, but he really just gives like 110% on every single play. He does run a ton of different routes because USC moves him all over the formation, in the slot, in the backfield, out wide. Like, they just want to get him the ball. And he's also good in space as well. He's tough to bring down. Even though he's shorter and not super, thick or anything, he does have an ability to break a tackle, to be dangerous after the catch. And this guy makes contested catches. I mean, they throw him fade routes in the end zone because he's so good at tracking the ball, high pointing it. And despite his small frame, he's really, really good at making really tough catches. And this guy just has kind of everything that you would look for in a wide receiver besides the elite athleticism and elite size. Everything else, he's so nuanced. He's so good at that. And, the easy comp, because he went to USC, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And it is really hard to find an Amon-Ra St. Brown comp that makes sense because Amon-Ra is just so tough over the middle of the field. He run blocks so effectively. He'll just take so many hits over the middle of the field, just finding that soft spot in the zone. Lemon does a lot of that really, really well. And I think that comp at least makes sense. It's lofty expectations. I'm not sure he's going to be quite that good, but I definitely see a guy that you can have him be the focal point of a passing offense, and he can be a really, really good, reliable target, even despite his physical limitations. Going through a couple of honorable mentions here. At number 11, we have Chris Brazzell out of Tennessee. He's a guy who is a pure deep threat. He has good size, great athleticism, can be a speed demon for days. I do think his ball tracking and contested catch ability is better than some of the guys that have come through there, somebody like Jalen Hyatt, but I think he disappears too often. I don't think his routes are always the most crisp. I just think there's some nuances to his game that need ironed out. Elijah Surratt, I wanted to like so badly because he, much like Makai Lemon, does all of the small things right. He is a much bigger player. He's like 6'2", 210 pounds. He's the kind of guy who creates separation through savvy route running. He gets open. He's, a good run blocker. I really question his athleticism. I did not see him pull away from anybody deep. I just don't think he has great ability to stack, great ability to create separation with his athleticism, great ability over the middle of the field, to break a tackle and use his athleticism. I really, really question if he has NFL caliber athleticism because all of the other things in his game are really nuanced, really polished. Jacoby Lane is a pure jump ball wide receiver. I would have liked him to go back to school. I don't think he creates much separation. I don't think that, he has a lot of nuance in his release packages and in his game. He is just a ball winner. And I think he's a little bit less polished version of somebody like Malachi Fields. Zachariah Branch is a very confusing player in how Georgia uses him. Antonio Williams is kind of similar as well. Both of these guys are undersized, really good and dangerous with the ball in their hands, but particularly Branch, they throw him bubble screens and like that's it. He doesn't even like get a chance to run downfield. His average depth of target is like less than 3 yards. It's kind of insane how Georgia used a really dynamic, athletic type of player. Branch, I'd be curious if he ends up going in this draft because I think he should probably go back and do some more wide receiver-y type things, but he's an interesting one. Antonio Williams, also very similar. He wasn't asked to do a lot. I think, has good athleticism. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands, but Clemson just didn't use him very effectively, and I think there's definitely some question marks in his game as well, just being able to separate, and with his size, can he, hold up over the middle with NFL physicality? So those are some honorable mentions. Did watch a couple other guys as well. Bryce Lance is an interesting one. I wasn't the biggest fan of Skylar Bell, but watched him as well. There's going to be tons of other guys that are in this draft class, but wanted to get a preliminary look at some of them, and those are some honorable mentions. But let's jump to number 1 here. That's going to be Jordyn Tyson out of Arizona State, redshirt junior, 6'2", 200 pounds, and we'll just address kind of the elephant in the room. Jordyn Tyson has dealt with a ton of injury issues over his career. Went to Colorado, transferred to Arizona State, has missed time in every single season, had another injury this year. It played in 9 games, but in those 9 games, 61 receptions, 711 yards, and 8 touchdowns. The biggest thing with Tyson is just simply going to be, can he pass the medicals for NFL teams? Is he going to be able to stay healthy? That is, the biggest question with him. But there's a lot to like in his game otherwise. He is one of those guys who doesn't necessarily have this one standout trait, but I really like his release package, his ability to fight off press, win at the line of scrimmage really quickly in his routes. That's where he is really elite. But outside of that, he's a really good route runner. He wins at all 3 levels of the field, runs a very advanced route tree. They ask him to do a lot, and he does it very effectively. And he just kind of does everything at a really high level. Has good hands, is good in contested catch situations, high points the ball effectively. Really where I think I like Jordyn Tyson the most is his ability to hit a backside dig, run through it, find the soft spot in the zone, make a tough catch over the middle of the field, take a pop. Like, that is just so big to have a wide receiver who can win underneath quickly with great release package on slants and, yards after the catch ability, where I think he isn't dominant, but he's still good there because he's a good athlete. He can win underneath. He can win over the middle of the field on those dig routes, over the middle of the field, settling in the soft spot in zones. And then he can also win deep. He has the athleticism, ball tracking ability to stack guys, win vertically, track the ball effectively, make tough catches in contested situations downfield. That's why I think Tyson is a very complete wide receiver. I'm not sure I see him as this, top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, at least not top 5, but I do really like him. I don't think he's, a Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Jamar Chase type of wide receiver prospect for me personally, but I do think he's absolutely worth, a round 1 selection, probably in this class, which I'm not super high on. Many of the guys I've watched so far as like dominant blue chip type of guys. I think he's going to be worth a top 10 pick if the medical's clear, but Tyson is a really fun player, somebody that I do think can be a wide receiver 1 and be really effective at the NFL level. So that's going to do it for my 2026 NFL Draft wide receiver rankings. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who do you like? Who do you think should have made this list or been higher or lower? If you like this kind of content, we will be putting out tons more NFL Draft content, mock drafts, player evaluations, position rankings just like this. So please hit the like button while you're down there. Hit the subscribe button as well. Both of those just free and easy ways to support the channel, and I would truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.